Once upon a time, in the bustling town of Harmonyville, people from diverse backgrounds lived together, contributing to the vibrant tapestry of their community. The majority of the population followed the Islamic faith, and the town's legal system was deeply rooted in a particular interpretation of Islamic law. This town, like every other town in the world, operated under an unwritten rule called a social contract. This unspoken agreement, inherited from birth, meant that everyone agreed not to break laws or certain moral codes. In return, they enjoyed the benefits of society, like safety, education, and other things needed for a good life. Let's imagine a situation to understand this better. Suppose there are two people in Harmonyville, Gibran and Feyyaz. Gibran accuses Feyyaz of stealing money. Instead of resorting to violence, both sides trust the legal system to sort things out fairly. They agree to follow the rules of the system instead of taking matters into their own hands. It's like saying, I won't attack you if you don't attack me. We do this because it's better for everyone in the long run. We might not get revenge right away, but we're also protected from others seeking revenge on us. So, it's like we all agree to live by these rules when we're born into a society. Now let's consider another example to illustrate the concept further. Imagine two people, Ali and Adnan, are in the woods gathering berries. Both are armed with knives and are wary of each other, making it difficult for them to focus on gathering berries. Eventually, they come to an agreement, a sort of contract, where they agree to put down their knives at the same time. While it might be challenging for them to give up their knives, it ensures that they can gather berries more efficiently without the constant fear of being harmed by the other person. This agreement helps them work together instead of against each other, ultimately benefiting both parties. Additionally, let's think about everyday situations like putting on seatbelts while driving, choosing not to drive while drunk, crossing the street at a designated crosswalk, disposing of trash in proper bins, or refraining from yelling in public. There's no formal agreement or paperwork involved where you promise not to do these things, but it's understood in society as part of an unwritten social contract. If you break these norms, you'll face consequences, not just because it's against the law, but also because it's for your own safety and the safety of others on the road. In Harmonyville, everyone lived by this unwritten rule called a social contract. This rule was about making life good for everyone in the town. Since the town's legal system was deeply rooted in a particular interpretation of Islamic law, people agreed to follow Islamic rules, like dressing modestly and not drinking alcohol or eating pork. It didn't matter if they had a different religion, they still had to follow these rules to keep peace. People could freely practice their own religion and peacefully discuss different faiths. However, according to the social contract, non-Muslims were not allowed to propagate their beliefs. They could practice and discuss their religion, But advocating for their beliefs to Muslims was not permitted under the agreement. This was important to keep everyone happy and getting along. In an Islamic society, a Muslim has the freedom to leave Islam if they choose, but as part of the social contract, they are not allowed to openly declare their departure from the faith and criticize it. If they do so publicly, there could be severe consequences, as they would be violating the terms of the social contract, which is essential for maintaining peace, harmony, and social order. If someone broke these rules, the matter would be taken to the courts, which were deeply rooted in a particular interpretation of Islamic law. It wasn't up to individuals to enforce punishment. Rather, the legal system handled disputes just like in any other country. This system of justice ensured peace and harmony in the community. Without it, there would be lawlessness and chaos, as everyone taking matters into their own hands would lead to conflict and disorder. So in the bustling town of Harmonyville, there lived a spirited young woman named Samar, who, like her neighbors, adhered to the Islamic faith. The town, with its closely knit community, upheld the principles of cooperation as part of their social contract. The daily life in Harmonyville was filled with shared values, communal celebrations, and a deep sense of belonging. Samar's family, friends, and neighbors played an integral role in the close-knit community. Despite differences in religious beliefs, people from various faiths participated in each other's religious festivals, such as sharing delicious food and extending invitations on occasions like Eid and Christmas. This inclusivity and mutual respect contributed to the peaceful coexistence of everyone in Harmonyville. One day, news spread that Samar was thinking about changing her religious beliefs. While she initially kept her thoughts private, a growing internal conflict prompted her to make a public announcement of rejecting Islam. Samar not only privately decided to leave the faith, but also engaged in activities that were considered blasphemous and offensive to Islam. She spoke openly against the religion, violating the social agreement and upsetting the peace. As people heard about what Samar did, the town elders, who served as the local court authorities appointed by the government, felt uneasy and worried. The community, which believed strongly in Islamic values, thought what Samar did was a big problem. They saw her speaking out against Islam as causing trouble and a threat to the peace and togetherness in the town, making things unstable. Seeing how serious the situation was, the town elders gathered to discuss it and figure out what to do next. Considering the severity of the situation, the town elders weighed their options. In their interpretation, Samar's actions were not only a threat to the social order, but also to the broader Islamic community. Some members argued that because she publicly said she was leaving the faith, there should be consequences to keep the rules of the agreement strong. In the end, acknowledging the gravity of the situation, the town elders deliberated on the fate of Samar in accordance with their interpretation of the social contract. Samar, perceived as a threat to the society's harmony because she publicly said she was leaving Islam and spoke out against the religion, her situation became crucial. The town elders, recognizing the complexity of the matter, considered alternative scenarios. If Samar had decided to not tell anyone about her decision to leave her religion, avoided speaking against Islam, she wouldn't have faced any consequences. If Samar belonged to a different country, things would be different. For instance, if she was a citizen of a non-Muslim country, she wouldn't face any consequences because she would return to her own non-Muslim country where Sharia law doesn't apply. Similarly, even if she was a citizen of a Muslim country with the strict implementation of the death penalty for leaving Islam was not followed at the state level, she might still face punishment, although not necessarily death, by the government of that Islamic country. This could vary depending on the country's legal system and cultural norms. However, regardless of the country, open renunciation of Islam by a Muslim and propagation of any other faith, including atheism, would be prohibited under Islamic social contracts. If Samar had chosen silence about her beliefs, the apostasy law might not have been triggered, and the community might not have viewed her as a threat. Let's look at an important story from Sahih Bukhari, a book about Prophet Muhammad's sayings, peace be upon him. In a part called the Book of Conditions, the Prophet had a talk with the Quraysh. The Quraysh suggested that if someone in the Islamic State stopped being a Muslim, they should be sent back to the Quraysh. The Prophet agreed to this, showing that under specific conditions, changing your religion might not lead to severe punishment. So had Samar been a citizen of another country, the town elders might have considered a different course of action. Instead of imposing the death penalty, the community might have opted for deportation, sending Samar back to her country of origin, aligning with their interpretation of the social contract as it pertained to non-citizens. The choice of what to do with Samar, whether to send her away, use harsher punishments, or consider other options, depended on how people in the community saw things. This showed how tricky it can be to understand religious teachings in different situations. It highlighted the careful balance between what individuals do, what society expects, and how the social rules work in an Islamic setup. In the end, because of what she did, Samar faced a serious outcome decided by the town elders following their understanding of the social agreement. The community saw Samar as a big danger to their peaceful way of life. So they made a firm decision. The severity of the consequences for Samar was closely connected to the nature of her wrongdoing. Since Samar had publicly said she was leaving Islam and spoke against the religion, the town elders had a tough choice to make. Because they saw her actions as a threat to their beliefs and the community, their ultimate judgment for Samar was capital punishment, a sentence of death for apostasy. In conclusion, the story of Samar highlights the nuanced nature of the punishment for apostasy in Islam. It's not a straightforward decree of death, but depends on various conditions and circumstances. Just like any legal system, Islamic law takes into account the actions of the apostate after leaving Islam before deciding the appropriate punishment. The emphasis is on considering the specific situation, actions, and potential threats posed by the apostate to the community. This underlines the importance of a careful examination of each case, reflecting the principles of justice and proportionality in Islamic jurisprudence. The story highlights a fundamental principle. Laws in Islamic societies are not for individuals to implement independently. Instead, the responsibility lies with the established authorities to uphold and interpret the laws within the framework of justice. Individuals cannot take the laws into their own hands, emphasizing the importance of a structured legal system that ensures fairness, due process, and adherence to the principles of Islamic jurisprudence.